Good morning on this Sunday, June 23rd, and welcome to the Georgia Gang. We now know the results of Georgia's runoff elections, and it's a big win for Lorraine Cochran-Johnson in DeKalb County. Also, the political spotlight shines on Atlanta as President Biden and former President Trump are set to debate on Thursday. And the Atlanta School Board picks its new superintendent. Kathy, Phil, and Martha are all here. Alicia Searcy is filling in for Theron. Welcome back. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
Results from Georgia's primary runoffs are in. Among the winners, Lorraine Cochran-Johnson, who is officially the new DeKalb County CEO-elect. With no Republican opposition, she is set to take the helm, replacing current CEO Michael Thurmond. After serving 5 years representing District 7, Lorraine Cochran-Johnson believes DeKalb County is now at a crossroads and says she's ready to tackle some tough issues, including crime. She says the DeKalb County Police Department is sorely understaffed.
We have businesses that cannot receive personal liability insurance, literally because the crime score is so high. And in these areas, these are communities where I'm actively trying to grow business.
Cochran-Johnson is the first Black woman to lead DeKalb County, joining a growing number of Black women in politics.
I'm happy to join several extremely competent African-American females. We continue to shatter glass ceilings that may have existed over the years.
So, Alicia, to you first this week. Cochran-Johnson did not have many of the establishment endorsements, but she won decisively anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think we have to think about what endorsements mean. Usually it's about, that means I respect them, I trust them, I know them. I've endorsed people, I've had to get endorsements, but at the end of the day, we have to trust that voters know what they want. I think in this case, we had 3 very strong candidates, and DeKalb would be in good shape either way. But in this case, there was a challenge, right? Because there were a lot of quote unquote establishment Democrats, I don't like using that word, but I know what people mean, who were concerned because of her alliances with Republicans. As you all know, I'm a big bipartisan person, so it doesn't bother me. I think DeKalb is one of those counties where you should want someone who's going to bring people together across racial, political, and geographical lines. And I don't think in any way that this means that there's a diminishing of influence of any of these people. They are very well respected. People understand who they are. I just think voters think for themselves and decide, yes, I see who likes this person, but here's what I think. Here's what I want.
Phil, your thoughts on this? Because, I heard from several sources who said, she did reach out to Republicans. She did go across the aisle. And, isn't that what you're supposed to do? But because of that, she might face some, tough challenges ahead.
Well, I agree with both of you because I think you have to build bridges, and there was no Republican candidate for DeKalb CEO. And so, yeah, you should reach out to the Republicans, and they were actually a swing vote. I think they probably got some concessions for supporting her. And so I think that it's a good thing to happen. And yes, I like to call it the establishment in Atlanta. Mayor Dickens trying to inject himself into a race by endorsing her opponent. And it was a slap. And she had kind of the outsider image, and that won. And a reform image, I think that won for her.
And really a tough on crime image too, Kathy. Is that what we're going to see maybe heading into November for Democrats?
Oh gosh, I don't even know what we're going to see coming into November, but I sort of agree with Alicia on this. I don't think endorsements matter that much. I think people think endorsements matter, but I think at the end of the day, voters care about what people in their neighborhood think, or their PTA buddy, and that's sort of how that happens. I think her opponents were both great. I do think DeKalb would have been good in any case, but they were fairly quiet men, and I think she's got a big personality, and I think her ability to reach people sort of came out in this instance.
But I also think she kind of shows a trend continuing. I mean, Michael Thurmond was that kind of Democrat too, that had great relationships with Republicans and worked across party lines and had a long career of doing that. And so really what she's doing, and I know she didn't campaign that way, but what it is, it's sort of continuing that same line of we want people that can get along with everybody in a county like DeKalb.
Oh, imagine
My
that.
home county.
Imagine that in politics,
That's right.
All right. Well, to Rockdale County, where a similar situation played out, incumbent county chairman Oz Nesbitt was beat out by Janice Van Ness, a former Republican state senator who ran as a Democrat. Now, Nesbitt had the endorsements of Stacey Abrams, Congresswoman Nikema Williams, and Mayor Andre Dickens. Kathy.
Wow. This one's a tangled web, isn't it? I think, I don't think a lot about people running in the opposite party primaries, and that's sort of the problem we have here in Georgia. Kind of goes both ways, like you don't register as a party. On the other hand, then you can kind of move back and forth, and I've certainly used it to my advantage in some of my work. But I think we'll have to see sort of what happened, and I think she'll be very vulnerable in a primary next time, obviously, and unless she decides that she really is a Democrat and kind of shows a little allegiance there.
Commission work is not that partisan.
That's what I was going to say, because Brian Robinson made the point last week, like,
Yeah.
shouldn't these races be nonpartisan?
Well, commission, though, they get elected on a partisan
That's
basis,
true.
so they do get, they tend to get messed up in that. I think one of the beautiful things about municipal elections is they aren't, and I think what you see oftentimes is voters get very touchy when the parties sort of reach down into municipal elections, or at least I certainly did.
This is a little bit of a trend, especially with Republican women. There are 2 in Oconee County that have made it to the ballot that were Republicans and are now running as Democrats. They weren't part of the runoff. They made it in the primary, but they are running as county commission and clerk of the court. Then over in the 11th district, the Democrat nominee was a Republican also, Katie Stamper. So we've got I'm not saying it's a trend yet, but it's kind of interesting, and it's a lot because of women that are uncomfortable with Donald Trump, and they've been in Republican politics before, and they don't want to get out of politics altogether. So they're running as Democrats.
That's
well,
an
I think it
interesting
underscores
observation.
that it should be nonpartisan in county commission races. I've always said in all of my career, I want sheriffs, DAs, and county commissioners as nonpartisan. And I agree, there's a lot of local issues that are involved, and it often is confusing. So with Rockdale County, I think it's great. I think that she could be a good Jeffersonian Democrat. She obviously is a conservative. I do know her. But what's wrong with that?
Well, if you know her, she must be a conservative, right?
And it wasn't a good night for incumbents that got to the runoff. I mean, we had in Hall County, we had an upset with the new county commissioner. Richard Higgins was beaten by David Gibbs, and we saw that kind of all around.
Van Ness, she won with 20 points.
Yeah, I mean, decisive.
That was
win,
decisive.
For sure.
And
Alicia.
I think the point that we cannot miss here is the voters like women as leaders.
Yep.
So it's Rockdale, it's DeKalb, it's Gwinnett, it's Cobb. I really
You're not
do
overgeneralizing at all.
I
Richard.
am.
Phil, are
I'm
you going to
speaking
disagree with
facts.
that?
But here's the deal.
I like
think,
women, but
to your point, though, I think when it comes to partisanship, I think voters are more willing to support and respect and trust women, because when women lead, we get things done. Now, that is a generalization and an opinion based on a lot of fact. But I think people are excited. And you know that in this time of partisanship and divisiveness, voters want to see things get done. And so I think even in this Rockdale race, people were perhaps less concerned about her previous party affiliation and wanted to see effectiveness. And I believe this is the time of the woman. People are excited. They want to see that kind of leadership.
should we put Melania Trump in as the
no,
Republican
sir.
nominee?
That's not the kind of woman I'm talking about.
It's just
let's
liberal women.
talk about this,
No,
because
no, no.
I think it sort of bears discussing for sort of what might happen in the fall. But when Shirley Franklin and I were both elected, we were the first women to hold our respective positions, mayor and city council president, and that came on the heels of the Bill Campbell administration. And I think it was a real indication that voters wanted something different, and the most different thing you can get is the gender of the candidate, because we still live in a world of gender roles. But I think that that's kind of the interesting thing. People are upset about how crazy politics are, and I think it might not have even been those particular races, but people were kind of like, hey, we can't do anything about the party stuff.
You have to be qualified. You have to be qualified, whether
And
you're
these
male
are all
or female.
very well
Yes,
qualified.
Okay.
Women are generally very qualified when they try something, because we try to talk ourselves out of it every step of the way. So
We have to be asked 8 times.
Yeah.
That's the number, right?
Well, Phil, to the 3rd congressional district, where Brian Jack, a former Trump aide, beat Mike Dugan.
Yes, that's where endorsements do count. And he was
And
Trump
money.
endorsed.
Money.
He had a lot of money from the Trump PACs and Kevin McCarthy's PAC. But he's actually a very good candidate. 36-year-old Peachtree City resident. He was the political director in the White House under Donald Trump. And he worked it. He beat other Republicans in the May 21st primary, and then he convincingly won last Tuesday. And I think he's going to be a rising rock star in the Republican Party.
But Mike Dugan was a great candidate too. Mike Dugan's done
only
great
won one
service in
county.
the
He only
Republican.
won one area.
Yeah, but still, no, I'm not talking about in this race necessarily. Speaking as someone who's lost a congressional race, okay, but he was a very good representative. He was a great state senator, so he's a very good Republican.
And he was a gracious loser.
Yes.
I think two things. It was interesting to hear the messaging of both candidates. I think Dugan was much more indicative of the older Republican Party. Jack is more of the new Republican Party. When you talk about massive deportation, all of these other issues, getting rid of DAs who prosecute Donald Trump. So I think they were very different in terms of their approach and their messaging, and I think a more conservative Republican who is indicative of kind of the older Republican Party, meaning in terms of years, not age, that's not attractive as much. What I love about both of them, though, is that they both talked about how they didn't want to get to Congress and become a Marjorie Taylor Greene, that they didn't want to attract all of this media attention. They just wanted to go and do the work. So I appreciated hearing that.
We'll see if we can hold them to that,
Yes.
right? Yes. Okay.
Stay tuned.
Up next, the stage is set in Atlanta for the first 2024 presidential debate. We'll preview the matchup.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
On Thursday, President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump are expected to take to the stage Thursday at CNN for their first debate of 2024. Martha, no audience, muted microphones. That's just part of the rules. What are you expecting here?
Well, I mean, the rules definitely favor President Biden, okay, and there's been a lot of demands that he's made afterwards. But I'm going to say something very strange, as I like to do. You know, I was talking to my friend Steve Moore, the economist, and we're kind of both hoping Biden does a good job, because if he does a bad job, they're going to get rid of him. And I want to run against Joe Biden. That's who we can beat. So I am looking for him to do a good job, and then Donald Trump will win in November.
Kathy, I would like to interview the person responsible for muting the microphones. What a job that's going to be.
Pick me, I really do. But the only thing I know that's going to happen for sure on Thursday is we are going to have a heck of a traffic jam in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yes.
And so I think if you can work from home, you might want to try to do that.
Yeah, good point.
No,
Any
I
previews?
think the rules actually could help Donald Trump, and I kind of like Martha. I just kind of want him to stumble.
He only kind of likes
I want
me.
Biden to stumble a little bit, and we can show the American people that he really is 81 years old and can't handle a lot of these topics. But I think the muting of the microphones it may be good for Trump, because if he gets trying to get carried away, they'll mute him.
Alicia, what are you looking for Thursday?
I guarantee you he's going to get carried away.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how the difference between how they both prepare, right? So President Biden is at Camp David. He's got all these people. He's prepping. He's spending several days. The Trump campaign is saying, oh, he's been preparing by doing these 1-hour speeches at rallies and all of these media interviews. That's his prep. And so now, I guess in the next couple days, he'll have some policy people. I'm hearing that he's got policy folks coming. That's good. But my prediction is that he's going to ignore all of the advice that he gets. He's going to start talking about whales and sharks and boats with batteries, as he's been doing in the last few days. And President Biden is going to show through his performance, and because he's prepared, that we need an adult to be the president, that we need someone who's not going to scare us on the international stage, and that this is a president who's prepared and has a record to run on.
Now, the big thing of the rules that did favor Trump is that they're not allowed to have notes.
Right.
And as you know, Joe Biden doesn't go anywhere without a whole bunch of notes he pulls out of his pocket on what he's going to say and how he's going to do it. And there won't be a teleprompter. So that's my one concern for him, because look, I went back to school at 56, and that's a lot younger than Joe Biden is. And I'd be sitting in class and preparing, and I would remember, and I would get home and look at my notes, and I couldn't remember a thing. Okay, short-term memory loss is a real thing as you get older. And
and both of them are quite old, so it's
Right,
going to be
they're both
younger
quite
side by side.
But listen, Joe Biden has actually lived through it and done this stuff, so he doesn't actually need notes like you would prepare for in a class. I mean, he's done the thing.
That
so
was maybe a few years ago.
but so he might be using notes to sort of guide sort of the things that he wants to stress. But I don't think he needs notes to remember what he did. And I think also what I really want to predict is just because the mics are off doesn't mean that Trump's not going to be disruptive. And I think that's going to be a problem.
Are they going to juice up Joe Biden
All right,
with something?
let's move move on. Another week, another bizarre interview for former Fulton County Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade. This time, he went on The Daily Show, and comedian Marlon Wayans did not hold back about Wade's relationship with District Attorney Fani Willis, even asking about sexual positions. Now, this was just an embarrassing interview for Wade and so disrespectful, Kathy, I thought, to Fani Willis.
I thought so too. I can't believe he didn't leave the room on the first statement. If he had been any sort of gentleman and not be thinking about himself at all, he would have gotten up and left the room and not come back. And why anyone would go to an interview like that and not expect that it was going to turn into some kind of sideshow like that, I don't have any idea. But let me say it again, Nathan, go home. We don't want to see you anymore.
And stay home. We said that last week.
Yep.
We thought it.
And the week before.
Right, right. Phil?
We did, yeah, I second the motion. Shut up. I'm sure that Fani Willis doesn't appreciate all of this. And you can bet that the Trump attorneys that want to remove Fani Willis in her office from the current so-called racketeering case here in Georgia are getting everything that they can from Wade. And I mean, if he can't answer a basic question like, when did your affair start, what was the date, and then freaks out, he has no business really doing any of this stuff. He's damaging Fani Willis's case.
Alicia.
I was utterly disgusted by watching this video, almost to the point where I wanted to cry, because it is unimaginable to watch such disrespect of the process of a person who you say is your friend. This is the district attorney that you have gone on national television and made a mockery of. And so I'm so disappointed, so hurt, and I wish that Nathan would just stop. We're continuing to lose sight that this case is arguably the most consequential legal case we will see in our lifetimes. And it is being screwed up, frankly, by indiscretion and poor decision making, and so it just needs to stop.
Well, go ahead.
Just poor judgment. I mean, he gets up and walks away from a CNN interview, but he sits there and takes it on The Daily Show. I don't get it.
There's nothing funny about this at all.
No, not at all. Because, we are learning new insight into threats made against Fani Willis and Fulton County Sheriff Pat Labatt. Arthur Hansen of Alabama pleaded guilty to leaving threatening messages because he says he was angry over the election interference investigation into former President Donald Trump. Now, Hansen told the federal judge he's not a violent person. He just made a stupid phone call. But Martha, Hansen will learn his sentence soon. I mean, stupid, yes.
Yeah, I mean, dumb and aggressive is a bad combination, and he got himself into a lot of trouble, and he should have the fullest extent of the law. Prosecutor, you don't threaten to kill people. You don't threaten to harm people. That's where the line gets drawn.
And Kathy, this is kind of what we're seeing behind the scenes. This is what was happening. This is what Fani Willis had alluded to, that she and her family were getting threatening phone calls.
Well, yeah, I mean, you see this kind of stuff all over the world where, dictators are taking out opponents and taking out journalists, and we see it in this country, and people are, it dissuades people from being in public service at all levels when they think, they could lose their life to a crazy person. And then, why on earth you'd leave a threat in a phone message?
It's beyond all of us.
It does make it hard for people to run for public office.
Yeah,
This is not helping at all on the social media with the viciousness and smears and lies.
And we get it. We get it.
And we ought to pay back some of the money that the county has had to spend for this round-the-clock security.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Coming up, the Atlanta School Board narrows down its choice for its next superintendent.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
The Atlanta Board of Education has its pick to be Atlanta Public Schools' next superintendent. The board named Dr. Brian Johnson, the Executive Vice Chancellor and Chief Strategy Officer at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, as its sole candidate for the job. Alicia, any insight on him?
Yes, lots. I'm excited about this pick. Although he doesn't know Atlanta, which was one of their criteria, this is a very well accomplished superintendent. So before this current job, he was superintendent in Hamilton County, which is where Chattanooga is. Tremendous results in terms of student growth. I'm loving what he's talking about in terms of science of reading and getting to work on that, the science of math and making sure students can perform. And so he's known to be an innovator. He's known to be high integrity. We absolutely need that right now.
Yes.
And he's a hard worker and a collaborator. And so I love the choice that this board has made. I trust what they've done, and I have high expectations. I think he's going to do great things for kids, and I think we'll be talking about the results of Atlanta Public Schools for a long time because of his leadership.
Well, good to know, Phil.
I'm going to be optimistic, and I've heard some good things, and I think some of the points you're making are right. He was superintendent of the year, and he has business background. He is emphasizing reading, which we only can go up with the Atlanta Public School system when you have, sadly, third graders can't read or can't even speak English. So I'm cautiously optimistic.
All right, moving on. Marietta City Schools officials made an important decision regarding cell phones in schools. The board voted unanimously 7-0 to ban cell phones for middle school students. Now, as the mom of a middle schooler, I feel like this is a great decision. Martha.
So I agree too, and I'm on the State Board of Education, have nothing to do with this decision, but I agree because now more and more studies are coming out that kids really shouldn't have smartphones before they're 16 years old because of all the problems that they have with that. And every school system that has tried this, the accomplishments of the students have gone up. I think it's a great decision.
Kathy, I think this might be a growing trend we're going to see in middle schools across the country.
Well, I've got the brain of a middle schooler, and I know for a fact that I can't keep my hands off my cell phone when I get bored. And so I think it is a good decision because I think it's just all too easy for kids to sort of whip the phone out and default to distraction. And so I think everything we can do to help them is good.
Phil?
I'm in favor of it. These students do have to focus. Now, they put it in a pouch in the school system in Marietta. If there's an emergency, they can get it out of the pouch. The principal's office is on standby. But focus and better learning is the key here.
Alicia, you're not so sure though.
I'm the odd woman out on this one. I'm an educator, right? Been a superintendent before. We've had these conversations about whether or not phones should be in schools. I've always said that we are in a time in education where we're behind, right? We're still delivering this telegram education to a TikTok generation. And so none of us can live without our phones, but we're expecting our kids to, and they are a part of this digital generation. And I think instead of banning phones in education, we ought to be finding ways to incorporate technology so that our delivery system is more meaningful to kids. The other thing for me is, as a mom, in the age of school shootings and violence and all of these things, I need to get Layla on the phone if there's a problem. And so I'm concerned about the safety here, that we can't communicate with our kids because our phones are away. So I get the research. I understand that the impact that, social media and all these other things have when kids have their phones, but I think we should think more about how we incorporate technology and how we think about the safety.
But let me debate you on that, because the kids will still have their computers, their laptops. They're still in a digital world. It's just that they won't have their TikToks and their Snapchats and all of that.
But if you look at how kids actually use technology, it's mostly on their phones. There are some districts, for example, who do a lot that use programs that can be used on the phones because kids are more likely to do that than they are on a laptop or something else. So again, it's about how we can make the balance. We want to protect students, but I also think moving in the direction of let's remove technology out in a place where we are in our society, I don't think is the right thing for what's best for kids in terms of their learning experience.
Martha?
But I'm all about parents being able to communicate with kids, but I do think that it's distracting if you get a message from your mom or whatever during school. They could go through the office and then get the message there. There was a college president, and granted these are older kids, they're having problems at the University of North Georgia where if a kid doesn't respond to the parent in the time, they're calling the police to come look for the kid. And you just got to be able to have a little more flexibility than that.
And balance. All right, we'll leave it there, folks. Coming up, winners and losers. Stay tuned.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
All right, Phil, we'll start with you this week.
Well, I have got a winner, and it's Abbott Massey, highly respected lobbyist. He was the head of the Poultry Federation for a long time, worked across party lines, and he will be missed. But his legacy also as a Georgia Bulldog lives. He was a great supporter of the school.
Well, I mean, he took his picture with everybody, because my Facebook feed has him with just about everybody I know on Facebook. He was such a popular guy.
Starting with the Kennedy inauguration. I mean, that is how long his legacy goes back. And I want to just shout out to Abbott Massey's family, Camille and Lewis and Kay-Ann. He was just amazing, and I was just so blessed. The last public thing he did was introduce me for a Rotary program on the 15th of April. It was on my bucket list to be introduced by Abbott Massey, because he did it with no notes, and he knew everything about you. So he will be greatly missed. But you know what? He's smiling down on us from heaven. And my loser this week is the other opposite end of the spectrum from Abbott Massey, Nathan Wade. He needs to go away.
Alicia.
So there are three people that I need to remember. One is my aunt Lamandia. We celebrated her birthday together last year this time, and she has since passed away.
Oh,
and so
sorry.
Condolences to the Cersei family. Fred D. Taylor, who he passed away today actually, or this week I should say. He is a civil rights icon, was with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. So we will remember him, honor him and his work. And then State Representative Pam Stevenson.
This was a heartbreaker.
This is a heartbreaker. Pam and I went in together in 2003. And I served those 12 years with her. And for all of those who know her, she once led Grady at one time. Just a tremendous, brilliant legal mind, beautiful, soft heart. And so we will miss her, and condolences. Very quickly, I do want to make a winner. Democrats for Education Reform, which I happen to work for. We had 8 candidates that won in the primary elections, and so I'm excited about that. Go to all of our DFER champions.
Kathy.
Hey, I want to also recognize the passing of Atlanta writer, playwright Shea Youngblood. She passed away this week, and she's going to be sorely missed. If you haven't seen Shaking the Mess Out of Misery, for which she is known, you should check it out.
All right, thank you all. Make it a great week.